All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly pretty surprising connection. One that links a single, tiny bone in your neck directly to the health, the strength, and even the stamina of your voice.
So let me ask you something. Do you ever feel like your voice just gives up on you? Or maybe you've got that annoying, nagging feeling that you have to clear your throat all the time, even when you're not sick. It's super common. But what if the reason for it isn't what you think at all?
Just take a look at this list. Your voice getting tired really fast, that constant throat clearing we just talked about, maybe a dry cough that just won't quit. Or what about jaw pain, or even headaches that seem to show up right after a long conversation or a day full of meetings? If any of these are hitting close to home, you're not alone. But these aren't just things you have to live with. They're clues.
And here's the plot twist. We all naturally think, oh, voice problem? Must be my throat. But the research we're digging into today tells us to look somewhere else entirely. It suggests the real culprit is actually hiding in your neck.
Okay, so let's unmask our surprising suspect. We're talking about a very specific vertebra called C3. It's probably not a bone you've ever thought about, but its job is absolutely critical.
So what exactly is the C3 vertebra? Well, it's way up high in your neck, and it's so important for your voice that it's earned the nickname the voice box vertebra. That's because the nerves that come out from this one spot are like a direct hotline to all the important machinery, the muscles that control your vocal cords, your throat, and even your jaw.
So let's explore this idea of a vocal power cord. Think of the C3 vertebra like the plug for your voice. When it's plugged in correctly and everything's aligned, you get clear, strong power. But if that plug gets jostled or misaligned, you start to get static on the line. This table really lays out the whole chain reaction. When that C3 gets knocked out of whack, the technical term is a subluxation, it can irritate the nerves going to your larynx, which is your voice box. The result? A strained voice, maybe you can't hit the high notes anymore. If it messes with your pharyngeal muscles, boom, there's that constant need to clear your throat. It's even connected to TMJ and jaw clenching. You can see how one single structural issue can cause this whole cascade of different problems.
So you might be wondering, okay, is this something I need to worry about? Well, it turns out that certain jobs and even old injuries can put a whole lot of extra strain on that C3 vertebra.
Let's see if your job is on this list. Teachers, public speakers, singers. You're basically vocal athletes, using your voice constantly. But it's also musicians who play wind instruments. That mix of posture and breath is a tough combo. Call center workers, especially if you're guilty of cradling that phone on your shoulder. And this is a big one. Anyone who's ever had whiplash or a neck injury, even if it was years ago. That old injury could be the source of a C3 issue today.
But you know, it's not always about your job or some big dramatic injury. Nope. Sometimes the problem just creeps up on you, all thanks to the little things we do every single day that slowly push our C3 out of alignment. And these habits look so innocent, right? Cradling your phone? Who hasn't done that? Clenching your jaw when you're stressed out? Check. Even something like using a pillow that's too high or too low can put your neck in a bad position all night long. But the real monster for most of us, it's that forward head posture. We all do it, from looking down at our phones and computers for hours on end. These tiny habits have a huge impact over time.
So what's the big deal? What happens if you just ignore the signs? Well, the source material lays out a pretty clear timeline of what happens when this problem isn't fixed. And here's the key. It's not a problem that just stays put. It gets worse.
In the beginning, maybe the first 5 years or so, it's just mild stuff. A little voice strain here, some throat tightness there, but let it go for 5 to 15 years, and now you're in phase 2. We're talking a much stiffer neck, your joints might actually be thickening, and you really notice your voice gets tired. And after more than 15 years, that's phase 3. The source warns of nerve root problems, seriously limited movement, and just constant hoarseness. It really shows you why catching this early is so important.
Okay, so that sounds a bit scary, but there is a path forward. The research points to a 3-part game plan. First, it all starts with a proper assessment, a complete evaluation of the C3 vertebra to see what's actually going on. Second, it suggests testing, like the Dutch test, to measure stress hormones like cortisol, because that can contribute to all that muscle tension. And third, it details a nutrition plan. using specific supplements to help the muscles relax and support the body's healing process.
And that brings us to our final thought for today. After seeing how all these things are connected, your neck, your daily habits, your voice, you really have to ask yourself, is my daily routine silently harming my voice? As we've seen, the answer might just be right there in your neck. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.